It's your Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, March 28th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that finally got that Emil Andrae ELC signed.
Yeah, it was just like, easy.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about him and the Phantoms, as well as previewing tonight's Flyers matchup against the Montreal Canadiens, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on Twitter at rmiriam. I'm here as always with Russ Cohen, who is on Twitter at Sportsology. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Flyers. That is where you'll keep up to date on our latest episodes and Flyers news. You can also email the show at lockedonflyers@gmail.com. We've got a mailbag coming up on tomorrow's show, so send us in your burning Flyers questions. Subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. A lot of news, or at least a couple of bigger pieces of news for the Flyers yesterday. First off, Dave Scott is officially retiring from the Flyers as of April 17th. The new CEO, Dan Hilferty, will take over as chairman of the company that day and then governor of the Flyers on July 1st. So that's something that we had been talking about as a likely possibility. We just weren't sure of the timing, and now we know.
Yeah, I mean, good luck to him, and he's had a nice career, and we'll see what this does for the Flyers and how it changes their direction. The governor thing means that he'll be going to those league meetings and such, and with Danny, and we'll see how that all rolls out.
Yeah, I think that, there's some thought that this could lead to more considerable change with management or the management style of the organization, which naturally comes from, leadership turnover like this. And
Mhm.
I would just say, yes, it could, but this is something that we'll have to see, what Dan has to say. He should become more vocal as the next couple of months progress and as the GM hiring process, whether it's Danny Briere or an external candidate
Mhm.
to be determined, he should be the one who's vocal about that decision, as well as any other management changes that will take place. So looking to get a sense of his voice over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, they won't. It'll be things will happen quicker than a couple of months. So it's going to be like a fluid situation for a while. To use that word.
Yeah, I think so too. But hopefully, we'll get a sense of what he's thinking really soon.
Hmm.
In the meantime, Danny Briere did announce that Emil Andrae signed that ELC. It's a 3-year ELC starting next season, which is really good news that
Hmm.
his contract is secured and he's going to ride out the rest of the season with Lehigh Valley.
Yeah, happy that it happened. I guess they liked what they saw for the tryout. I wouldn't have bothered with the tryout. Like I saw what he did in every World Juniors, and I would have just done it. But that's fine. That was their process. I'm okay with it. It works out in the end. Uh, like I've told people, he now becomes to me their best offensive defenseman prospect, and that's good because in a couple of years he might be that guy that needs to run the power play because it's up to Cam York. I've talked about his shot and what he needs to work on, and if he's not there, then it'll be him or Adder at that point.
Yeah, and he did make his Phantoms debut this
Mhm.
past weekend, and that is a good segue into our Phantoms Tuesday update, starting right away with that debut. I would say that there is definitely some adjustment that has to happen. He talked about it specifically that it's easier to go from the bigger ice to the smaller ice, so he doesn't have any concerns. He's played
Mhm.
in several tournaments, World Juniors and whatnot. So he's used to the smaller ice already. And, it's just going to take some time to adjust to the game. And I would say, yeah, there's a little bit of work to be done there. He took interference and holding penalties
Yeah.
on Saturday and then a delay of game on Sunday. So I think it's just really learning the rules and where the line is, playing defense, which is, a natural part of the process. So I'm not really worried about that. It costs little problems in the game for sure.
I mean, it's gonna but again, he's like a
it's
big
just
part
part
of
of
the
it.
future. You just have to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But he also got an assist in each game in the weekend, and one of the assists he got was a secondary assist on the power play, which was actually he had some really heads up play on the power play, really good at keeping the puck
Oh,
in
he's
the
great at
zone.
keeping the puck in. He's really a pro at that.
Yeah, and it really was evident, I think, in the games this weekend, in these first couple of games for the Phantoms, and just really good head on his shoulders
Mhm.
in terms of knowing where to be, even on a new team like this. He could really, make those adjustments quickly. And so I was generally pretty pleased so far with his first couple of games.
Yeah, he's fast, he's smart, he's physical, he's got a good hockey IQ. His offense is terrific. He's gonna be a good player. You hope he just doesn't take too much of a beating. That's the only thing you worry about.
Yeah, and he did say that, because he arrived before, these couple of games, he did watch a couple of the previous games that the Phantoms had just to get a sense of the system
Right.
from upstairs, and that was helpful and kinda learning a little bit more about the AHL style of game. So, he has to work a little harder giving his size to avoid some of the bigger hits that
Yes.
are gonna get thrown in the AHL, but I think he's, like, on his way to learning how to skate his way out of it, which he can do.
Oh, yeah, no, he's a good skater.
Yeah, and it was also nice for him to have Adam Yanning and Ollie Lixel and Sam Ersson on the team.
Yep.
He said apparently that, some of the North American guys had to tell them to speak in English so they knew what they were saying because there was all of them at
Yeah,
once
they
in
were
the
all
locker room.
chattering. That's good, though.
Yeah, it's really good. Moving over to the rest of what the Phantoms were up to, they had 2 wins this weekend, a 3-2 overtime win versus Wilkes-Barre Scranton, and then a shootout win on Sunday versus Hershey, and both games were a little dicey, I'm gonna
Oh, no, they were
say.
dicey. I know they were down 3-0, I think, on Sunday, because there were people
They were
tracking
down
it. 2
2-0.
nothing, then 3-1.
Yeah, it was like 2-0, 2-1, 3-1,
Yeah.
3-2. Yeah, that's how it went.
So it definitely was dicey. I know yeah, it's not smooth. They do have some injuries. Some guys are out. A
Yeah.
win's a win's a win, but you are hemorrhaging some points too. Uh, I looked at it. Yeah, there's still their magic number's 12, and there's other teams that are close. So they're not safe yet.
Right. So they are still in fifth and haven't clinched that playoff spot yet. Hershey had clinched a playoff spot on Saturday, the day before the Phantoms and Hershey played. And, right, luckily they were playing Hershey, who's so far ahead of them, and Wilkes-Barre Scranton, who's so far below them that it didn't make an
Yeah,
immediate
those points
impact.
doesn't matter, right?
Right. So it was good that they got the 2 points out
Hmm.
of both of those games, winning in overtime and the shootout, because Springfield is 1 point ahead of them right now in 4th place,
With a game in
but
hand,
with
right?
a game in hand. Yeah, and the Phantoms are in the 12-point, magic
Yeah,
number right now. So, it's not gonna be easy for them to
no,
get there, and, I think like we've said, having Tyson Foerster out for the block of games, having Zamula out for a few games definitely affected them. Ronnie Attard was out both games this weekend due to illness. Cooper Marody and Hayden Hodgson have injuries right now, and Cooper Marody has been a huge part of their offense as
yeah.
of late, and they're just having to find it from other places. And luckily, Adam Brooks has been stepping up.
Mhm.
Obviously, Garrett Wilson has been doing so. So a lot of these like AHL players are continuing to
Fitzgerald
do that.
actually hasn't had very good of a season. Had a goal on Sunday.
Yeah, but I would say that one of the things that's been good is that Artem Anisimov, who had started off with a bang and then had a bit of a lull, seems to be like back on the horse right now,
That's good.
and had a really solid weekend, a goal and an assist in each game this
Yeah.
weekend, which was really good to see. So it's been kind of dicey, like I said, but also, some really good signs in there as well.
I mean, the power play still stinks, though.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, I think, that's been a huge problem, right? I mentioned Emil Andre's penalties that he's been taking. Again, understandable, the kinds of penalties that he was taking, but that gave, like, for instance, Hershey had 6 power plays on Sunday, and they were all in the second period. Hershey scored on 2 of them, including the 5-on-3.
Not great.
No, not great at all, and that's how Hershey took that 2-0 lead in
Right.
that game that, the Phantoms had to battle back from, and it was good that, Zamula and Foerster each got assists,
Hmm.
in that return game, so they kinda integrated themselves back in and contributed, so that was good to see, as well. But then, on the flip side, Hershey got 21 shots on goal in the second period of that game, which is tied for highest shots in a period that the Phantoms have allowed all season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like I'd like to have more confidence with what's going on with them, and they're just getting by. And I think they have to do better than that if they're going to make
Yeah,
the playoffs, and if they make the playoffs, actually do something in the playoffs.
exactly. Well, we're going to have more to talk about with the Phantoms and looking ahead to the next few games on the schedule and what has to happen after this.
The tournament is heating up, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. That's because right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to fanduel.com/locked on and sign up today to claim your no sweat first bet. Then you can wager on everything from the money line to point spreads to which team will be cutting down the net, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So don't miss your shot at a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to fanduel.com/locked on to sign up. Make every moment more with FanDuel.
So, continuing our Phantoms Tuesday report, I want to talk about the goaltending because once again, with only 2 games, Sam Urson played in both games, and I think he's continuing to struggle a little bit there. Now, granted, like for instance, in the game on Sunday, with so much time on the PK, there is a certain understanding to it, right? But at the same time, it's still not as good as it could be. And in 2 completely different games, on Saturday against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, he only faced 21 shots, but
Right.
Sunday versus Hershey, very different kind of team, 40 shots on
Yeah.
goal. And
You don't want them
so
to get worn out.
no, and I think, that was one of the things we talked about last week when we talked about Nolan Meyer is that he's not getting the starts and there's not
Right.
consistency for him to be
Yeah,
developing. And while
you're putting them in now, you're putting them in really cold.
right, and that obviously developing Sam Emerson is more important than developing Nolan Meyer. Like there's no question about
Mhm.
that. However, I, I don't want Sam Emerson to be worn out before the playoffs. I
Right.
think that's going to be a huge problem. Now, maybe they're waiting to clinch the playoff spot and then play Meyer a bunch of
Magic
games to
number
get,
is
but
far in the
that's bad
distance.
either.
Yeah, it's a long way away right now.
Yeah, so I'm sort of questioning this goaltending strategy that
Me
they
too.
have right now. Definitely thought they should have split those back-to-back
It makes me
games.
wonder. It makes me wonder if um, what happens with the Flyers with goaltending happens with the Phantoms. Not sure it does. Doesn't seem to
Well,
be lining up.
so in terms of, how they decide who's gonna play,
Correct. Yeah. mapping it out, those kinds of things. Doesn't seem to line up for me.
Well, I know that at least my take on what the Flyers have been doing with Carter Hart and Felix Sandstrom is that the balance has gotten a little better, and they've chosen to put Felix Sandstrom in. I
Yeah,
think most of the time it's been in the right spots and with the right frequency right now. But I think that the philosophy, like we've said in Lehigh Valley, is to start the guy who just had a rough game.
yep,
And when you have a string of rough games, like eventually it piles up to the point where just getting back on the horse isn't going to solve the problem.
yeah. Like we brought up like with the Flyers, Hart's at 52 games, so 5 off the league lead. Um, I'll look on and see what Sam Ersson has played and what he's played in his career because I'm gonna guess he's probably reaching that right now. So Sam Ersson has played. Um, uh, oh, he's only played 10 with Lehigh, and then I gotta see 10 with the Flyers. Sorry, I gotta see how many with Lehigh. Um, because now it's like a split thing. There we go. Um, he's played 46 games, so that is the most he's ever played. 42 with Brenus was the most he played. So he's
Yeah.
already at 46, and there's no end in sight. And
Yeah.
his save percentage has dropped. Like it's 904 now in Lehigh. Like, he's not the same.
Right.
So
And
it
that's
does
where I
make you
think
wonder.
a day off could help him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's something that is worth keeping an eye on. I think aside from that, other things going on this past weekend. Honestly, it warms my heart to see Ryan Fitzgerald get a goal on Sunday.
Mhm.
He's been out a lot with injury, and then just there wasn't room for him in the lineup, and he had
Yeah.
to like work his way to get in. So he hasn't played very much this season. So to see him get a goal was just a nice thing. And then I do want to say that Bobby Brink's shootout goal on Sunday was absolutely spectacular. It didn't count as the, clinching
Right.
goal in the shootout because Hershey didn't score at all. So Bobby Brink was the last shooter. But um, I think that that was good to see, just some of his creativity on that goal.
Sure, but we need to see a lot more 5-on-5.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, that's been part of the problem with the line shifting around with
Yeah.
the call-ups to the Flyers, right? That in his stage of development, having, more consistent line mates is a good part of it. Now, but for the whole weekend, he was on a line with Denoye and Lixell. And I think that, Brink and Lixell together makes sense, but Denoye and Brink together don't make sense to me.
No, I'm with you on that. And so we'll see. Maybe they'll switch it up. Maybe they won't. But either way, he's going to have to overcome this because whether he gets a call up or not, the um, the prevailing thought is, I was in Lehigh uh, for a couple of the college hockey games this weekend, speaking to everybody who covers there, and they're underwhelmed with Bobby Brink.
Yeah, I think that, he's had his, like, flashy moments, but,
Hmm.
he does need to pick things up, and I think it's helpful for him to be sort of under the radar right now,
Yeah.
but come this summer, that is going to change completely, that he's
Oh yeah.
gonna have to make measured improvement in his preparedness for next season, come to camp, raring to go and really make an impression. So I think this off season's training is going to be hugely important. And honestly, if uh, there would be a good benefit to him sticking around the Philly or Allentown area to do his training
Yeah,
this year.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think that would be good because his goal scoring is just down. Like it's his goal
Right.
scoring. He's a goal scorer. End of the day, that's what you need to get out of Bobby Brink.
Yeah, and to me, like, we talked about him having a potential of a late season call up to burn one of the last
Yeah.
two, and I don't know that that would help him right now.
I mean, I
But
mean, there's two schools of thought on it. I mean, it could help him just because he'll play with better players and have more opportunity to get shots off. Because, you know, the Flyers don't have a ton of guys shooting right now. So it could help them. Can't say it won't.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, this is going to be a very crucial week this week for the Phantoms. They play 3 games in a row, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Hopefully Sam Ersson gets the day off for one of those 3 games.
Yeah, who
Uh,
needs
but Friday versus Wilkes-Barre Scranton, again, just got to get those points. But then their Saturday, Sunday games are against Hartford and Bridgeport, who are right below them in the standings. So they
those
can't.
teams are hungry.
Yep, and especially Bridgeport is right below them, most important to win against, but certainly all 3 of them should be wins in theory, and so it is very
Count your
important that the
chickens, Rachel.
Phantoms. Hmm?
Don't count your chickens before they're hatched.
I'm not. I'm saying it's very
I know,
important.
but you're like, well, they should be though, and I'm like, don't say that yet.
Well, I don't know. We'll see, but it's very important nonetheless. Um, Also very important is the Flyers game against the Montreal Canadiens happening tonight, and we will talk about that one coming up next. All right, Russ. So tonight's game against Montreal takes into account this tankathon race that is happening right now.
Yeah.
And so Montreal is 4 points above, 4 points below, but 4 points ahead of the Flyers in the lottery standings right now. The Flyers have 1 game in hand, and the issue is that the Flyers have more regulation wins than Arizona and Montreal, who are the 2 teams above them. And the win against Detroit got Detroit closer to the Flyers in those standings as well, because Detroit was right below the Flyers. So now this week we're facing these opponents that are pretty close to them standings wise. And so you want the Flyers to play well, but like our nemesis of the week said yesterday, winner points are, they have their upside and downside this week.
Yeah, I mean, they put up an 8 spot against the Blue Jackets the other day.
They did.
They have a rookie Pinard who's got 12 goals. He had a hat trick in that game, so he's been hot. They're getting it from unlikely places. Mike Hoffman, I think, has gotten sparked because I forget who it was. Maybe Greer kind of ruined his good looks with his chin, and so he went on social media to talk about that because I think he only got a 1-game suspension, and it should have been more. So he's fired up now. Jake Evans is back, who's a very good penalty killer and a nuisance in a lot of ways. Kirby Doc's still there. Edmondson punishes guys. Gurianov, now there's some extra speed there. Suzuki just had like a 4-point game the other day, and Matheson's doing well for them offensively too, on the blue line. So this could be a very high-scoring game.
It could
be one of those weird high-scoring games. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, it would not shock me either. Montreal has been plagued with a ton of injuries all season long, and that's given some of these guys like Harvey Pinard huge opportunities in the Habs lineup, and they've taken advantage of it. I mean, it doesn't hurt being on Nick Suzuki's line, like you said. So they're playing really well together right now. But this could be exactly one of those games that goes off the rails real quick.
Yeah, I think the teams are going to forget about the tankathon part of it for a little while, and that'll be
the players themselves won't care. That's for sure.
That'll be the interesting part of it.
Yeah, the Habs will be on the second half of a back-to-back coming into this one. They are. They will have played the Sabres last night in a game we don't know the results to, but before that, 3-5-2 in their
maybe
last
you don't know
10.
the results. I'm psychic. I actually know the results. I could share them with everybody, but I care not to.
Right. Yeah. Is your time machine a hot tub?
Not saying. Could be
Right.
could be a steam room.
Yeah. one of the guys I'm interested in watching on Montreal is Jonathan Drouin, because he's had such a rough road
Oh
uh,
yeah,
in the NHL, but he's on the second line now again because of all the aforementioned injuries to the team. He's moved up to this second line with Kirby Dach and Gurianov, and I think that um, that says a lot about where Montreal is, but also is this like sort of the last shot for Jonathan Drouin to establish himself as an
I think it
NHL
is.
player?
Yeah, I think it is, and it's a shame. He's a guy who had a lot of talent, and now he's 27. Once you get close to 30 like that, and you haven't established yourself, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think for the Flyers, I would expect Carter Hart to be in net for this
Yeah,
one, just because of the days off in between. Maybe Sandstrom gets one of the starts later
yeah,
this week for the Flyers, and so given everything and the kind of scoring that Montreal can have when they choose to do so, I would expect it to be a busy night for Carter Hart.
yeah. And Jake Allen's a really good, competent goalie too, who's used to stopping a lot of shots. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I like I said, I'm just expecting this one to be loose. I don't know why, uh, but I'm
Hmm.
expecting it to be that way based on the way they're playing. And if it is, it'll be exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. But aside from that, we'll see how this game turns out as part of this fascinating week for the Flyers, facing similar ranked teams in the Habs, the Sens, and the Sabres. We will be back tomorrow to recap this game against the Habs. We'll also have our mailbag. So make sure you get in your Flyers, your NHL questions. You can tweet us at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. Now make your next listen Game to Game NHL. It's every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. It's on the Locked On NHL feed, available anywhere you get your podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.